pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine and reset our world. Klaus Schwab. The Great Reset, a term that has become commonplace since the turn of 2020, used by unelected elites to determine the direction of humanity post-pandemic. Klaus Schwab, founder and CEO of the World Economic Forum, also released a book with the same title. What is the World Economic Forum? Quote, "The World Economic Forum is the international organisation for public-private cooperation. The forum engages the foremost political, business, cultural and other leaders of society to shape global, regional and industry agendas. The Great Reset is essentially the World Economic Forum's action plan to fundamentally change how the world functions. It is using the pandemic as an opportunity. Just by taking a glance at the website, you'll see a heavy focus on environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, poverty and inequality. Sounds great, right? As does every other utopian idea, all of them with a 100% failure rate. And before I continue, let's make it abundantly clear that another term, Build Back Better, is a branch off of the Great Reset to capture the imagination of the undiscerning crowd. How do we know if the so-called leaders of the world are in on this rhetoric?
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it Build Back Better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
It's my plan to build back better.
If we take a look at the Great Reset page on the World Economic Forum's website, we see a few vague but compelling requests. It asks for global stakeholders to cooperate in simultaneously managing the direct consequences of the COVID-19 crisis, with a unique window of opportunity to shape the recovery. This initiative will offer insights to help inform all those determining the future state of global relations, the direction of national economies, the priorities of societies, the nature of business models and management of the global commons. They also mention the need for new social contracts, because of course these unelected elites know exactly how the people and organisations should interact with each other. All in all, it's very vague, but it is blindingly obvious that the people pulling the strings here are the rich, powerful, unelected elite, and the common man is not going to have any say in the direction of this so-called Great Reset. We cannot make any mistake, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It is evident that the people behind the supposed Great Reset wish to radically change the direction of humanity towards what they feel is a more enlightened future. There is a tyranny in the womb of every utopia. Bertrand Juvenel. Most people want to see a better world, of course, but these egomaniacs do not ask the people what they want. They expect everybody to think and act as they do. There are almost 8 billion people on the planet, and yet a room full of people consider themselves worthy of moving humanity in the direction of their choice. No democracy, no one to be held accountable. It is not a new phenomenon to have a small group of elites trying to bring about their own version of utopia. Quite recently, we have had millions of deaths via government genocide or mass starvation, usually a combination of the two. It always follows the initial schema. Once we bring about our enlightened ideas, all will be well and humanity will flourish. This is all for the greater good. In the meantime, you better keep out of our way and let us elites do what we know to be right. This thinking cost over 100 million deaths in the 20th century and has a 100% failure rate. Still, Mr. Schwab wants us to try this again, but this time with advanced technology and on a global scale. What are the other concerns with this supposed enlightened future? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This idea is warning written all over it. This is so Orwellian, so authoritarian, so incredibly uncaring of the views of the general population that it's pretty frightening. The first problem with this: nobody has the right to determine what will make anybody else happy. Any human being with a reasonably developed psyche can make that decision for themselves. Secondly, it isn't that nobody will own anything. The reality is that a very few elites will own everything, and the average person will have to settle with their lot. You'll own nothing and be happy could be reframed: we'll own everything and you'll have no choice but to be happy. The purpose of this sleight of hand is to remove private ownership from the individual and small business, which is the fundamental principle of prosperity. It is no coincidence that the majority of wealth in the Western world has been generated since the Enlightenment era of the 17th to 18th century. This is when private ownership became highly valued and prosperity followed relative to the rest of the world. As proven, ownership should be as broadly available as possible and not focused in the hands of a few. In modern times, we can see where this ideology of owning nothing can take us. In China, there is a social point system. If you act in ways which the political elite deem incorrect, you can have your life turned upside down in an instant. This is happening right now in one of the most powerful countries on earth. Will this be sold to you as a monopoly by huge corporations and the government? Of course not. Like the terminology with the Great Reset, it will be sold to you as owning nothing but being happy. The reality is that the very few will own everything, the vast majority will be at the mercy of their will. So I invite you to question whether you are happy with this small group of elites dictating the direction of human race. No consultations, no democratic process. There is no opt-out button when this takes shape. After all, you'll own nothing. But will you be happy? What happens to the renegades, the dreamers, the writers, the creators, the artists, the innovators? Where will they go in this high-tech welfare state? But it would all be okay because it's for your own good and the good of everybody.